Hi everyone, it's Alyssa here from the Township of Washington Library with the February Craft for Adults. We are thinking of winter here today when we are making our little Shadowbox arts. Alright, so everyone's gotten slightly different supplies from each other. You may have this one, you may have a square one. Everyone's scrapbook paper is a little different. Everyone got a cardinal because we are celebrating our district pride. And there are different trees, different colors. There are a couple of people got little deer. A couple of people got little snowmen. Everybody has slightly different supplies, but we did all get one paintbrush and some paint. I only used the white, blue, and black, but there's also, I believe, green and brown floating around because some of the papers have more of a woodsy look to them. So what else will you need? You will need from home a pencil, a ruler, some glue. So I used both hot glue and regular school glue, the white or the clear. So for the cardinal, I used regular hot glue, but sometimes you may want to use something a little stronger, like an E6000 or something a little more permanent. That is up to you. Make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area if you do that. So I've got the tree. I drew a little snowman in there because I didn't want to take a snowman from somebody else. I think that's it. Something to protect your surface, some scissors, that's about it. It's a really simple craft, but it is pretty darn cute, and I do like this nice little winter decor. So I'm going to show you how to do it. It's quick and simple, and everyone's will look different. So even if you got a kit with your neighbor and you are doing your kits together one afternoon, highly recommend. Yours will look completely different from each other, so have fun with it. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to get started here. To get started, all you have to do is paint your box white. Okay, so I'm going to just go in with an opaque white here. I know sometimes you see me watering it down, and sometimes I'll do a wash because I like the way the wood looks, but for this nice frosty white winter look, I'm going to do an opaque white. Something that you can do after it's dry is you can do a little weathering, a little distressing, and you can sand some of the edges and have some of the wood peeking through that way. You can also do like I've done in many videos, as I said, where you water down the white and you have more of a wash, a little bit more of a stain, so you see a lot of the wood grain showing through. It's up to you. I've given you the white paint. You can do whatever you would like with it, but I'm going to do a nice opaque coat of white so that it really feels wintry and snowy. So I'm just going to use my brush and go through and do all of that. We'll let it dry and then we'll move on. And then of course let it dry. Sometimes this untreated wood soaks in your paint quite a bit. So let it dry, decide if you need to do another coat. I would probably do 2 coats to make sure that this is as opaque as possible. And once it dries, then we will start gluing on our paper and adding some design. This is a really easy craft. There's nothing too complicated about it, but you can get creative, and I'll show you that once we move on to the next step. All right, so I've done my second coat, and before it sticks to the newspaper, well, it already is. I'm gonna pull it up and save it. All right. There we go. It's still wet, so it's still easy to pull this away. You don't want to let it dry on your newspaper because you will have regrets. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is to fit our paper into here. So what you can do is just put this face down on your paper, do the back of the paper, we'll trace it, and then you can just subtract the thickness of your border here. And then we may need to trim it up just a little bit, but that should be good. So I'm just going to wait for this to dry completely before I go ahead and trace this out. So I've got about a centimeter's thickness here. So I'm just going to mark that so that I can kind of follow that as I'm cutting. You don't even need to use the paper if you don't want to. If you want to just paint and have the paint be your guide, maybe you have some extra colors at home that I didn't give you that you want to use to create a little scene, you can totally do that. You'll see I'm planning on kind of embellishing mine a little bit more, but it also depends on the paper that you've gotten. Everybody got different papers, so that's good. Okay, so I'm gonna just put some glue down here after I make a mess. All right. Okay, so I just have some regular old school glue. I'm gonna put it down and then spread it out with a paintbrush, finger, whatever. Just gonna spread it out with a brush so that it's even. And I don't have weird globs that make the paper look lumpy and strange. Right, make sure you get into the corner so it doesn't lift. Yeah, you can just use any glue that you want. You could use hot glue if you have hot glue. We're going to use hot glue later. You know I love my hot glue, but sometimes I don't like using hot glue when it comes to paper because sometimes, it dries really fast and then you've got this little lump of hot glue and I don't like the way that looks. So, all right, that's definitely enough glue. Okay, I'm going to put that down there. Push it down. Make sure it really catches into the glue. And now if you're, like a decoupage fiend, you can go ahead and do that. I know some people like the shiny or the matte finish of a decoupage. You can do that. And it just makes it a little more secure in there as well. So go ahead if you would like, but you don't have to. You can leave it just like this. I'm going to let this dry for a couple of minutes, and then I'll show you how I go in. I'm going to make this more of a snowy scene, and then I will add in my little decorations, and that will be it. Also, if you did use glue, use a brush for your glue, just go ahead and make sure you rinse that off pretty quickly. Whether it's a regular brush or a foam brush, it does kind of soak into there and ruin your brush, so go ahead and clean that. Also, these for acrylic paint, once acrylic paint dries, that's it, that's the end. So take this time to go ahead and rinse your brushes and dry them so that you can reuse them for another project. Okay, so I think what I am going to do with mine, I only have one. I believe you guys all have two. I'm going to glue my tree in here and move my bird up here. And then maybe I'm going to just decorate this and make it look kind of snowy in here. And I might try to paint a little snowman down here. We shall see. All right, so the other colors that I've given you that I've added to my paint palette are just a little bit of black if you want to do some shadowing and dimension, and a little bit of blue for the same reason. I think you also got a little bit of brown because some people have maybe more of a birchy or woodsy scene in the back. So there's brown and green as well. So maybe you wanted to draw a branch or you wanted to add a little dimension to some woods, what have you, but you don't really need a lot. You needed the most of the white, so I'm just doing a little bit of all of these things. So I'm gonna add some. I have this like very old kind of splayed brush here, and I'm going to go in with the white and just kind of make it look like a little bit of a snowy scene. Write some snow on the edges. And get into the edges there. And this kind of almost reminds me of when you do a frosted glass glass, you know, like with the fake snow, and you do it all around the edges, and then the inside is still kind of clear, but you have these little bits of snow coming in. So there's not too much paint on my brush. You could see when I first started it didn't look that great, but the less loaded my brush became, the better it was. So I'm only adding just a drop every now and then to keep it up, and then blending it towards the edge as there's less and less paint on my brush. So when I load my brush, I'm really just going into the corners and the edges here, and then going outwards. Okay, so I just glued this in place, and also you can see I pulled out this little metal clip underneath all this feather and fluff and fabric. This little bird is just some foam. So I was able to you just put some pressure and open this up. You can pull it out so you can get rid of that little metal clip so it doesn't ruin your pretty little look here. All right, so let me see. I'm going to put some white on this tree trunk. I was waiting until I was done because I knew there was going to also be some hot glue leakage here, so I'm just going to paint the trunk of my tree as well so it blends in a little bit. You can do it before too, even because then you can get more of it, but do before and after. If you want, you can add some more snow to your tree. This is just white paint, so you can add some more. If your tree doesn't have the snow paint, and even if it does, like mine, you want to add more, this is how you do it. Just take some of the white paint on your brush, and you go from the top down, because that's how the snow would hit. You want to get the edges, not so much the inside. Don't try to really get in there. And then, of course, at the topmost point is where it will be the whitest. Okay? Anywhere that you want to touch up your white paint, now's the time. I got a little bit of blue over here, so I'm going to touch that up on the side. All right, and then I'm going to do just a little snowman in here. You don't have to. I'm going to. Let me test this out and decide how. So for me, I'm not very good at drawing or anything like that. I'm crafty, but I'm not good at drawing. So when I try to do something like these circles, I kind of let the brush do the work. I kind of bring it around, but I'm not really directing the tip, I'm directing the brush. Don't worry if you get too much black on there because you can go back in with your white. If you've ever watched any of my paint along videos where I show you how to interpret a painting video, you know that I say that painting works in layers. So just keep layering. And try to pick a light source. So let's say the light's coming from here, right? Okay, and then I'm gonna need the teeniest, tiniest little buttons and eyes and maybe even a hat. So for something like that, I always say use the back of your brush, but depending on your scale, you might not want to do that. So I'm actually going to use the tip of my pencil. I'm going to dip the pencil in the black paint and do the littlest buttons like that. And eyes. Oops, not little eyes. Well, that's all right. And as if I'm drawing, I'm going to use the pencil as my paintbrush. I can go back in with the white and just put like a little highlight on the hat here. And that is that. Okay, so as you can see, you can do whatever makes you happy. This is mine. If you have two and you want to make them the same so that they're almost like a scene and you can put them next to each other, you can do that. If you want to make them completely different from each other, you can do that as well. Everybody has slightly different supplies, so just go ahead and be creative and have fun. It's just a nice little piece for winter. And of course, go Cardinals! All right, everyone, that is it for me for this time. I will see you next time. Don't forget to come on in and visit the library, and we will see you soon.